Let me turn now to David Smith, the Washington bureau chief for the British newspaper The Guardian. David, welcome to the program. So you've got a very suspicious poisoning, then you have a suspicious death, most likely murder, both Russian, both in the UK. What do you make of that, and what is going on?
Someone said this week, Russia is a global power, but it's acting like a rogue state, and really things do seem out of control when you combine the incidents you've just described with what's been going on in the United States as well, with the election interference and even reports of Russian hackers targeting power stations here. And I think the big question is, like with a schoolyard bully, what can the West actually do about it? And we've seen the UK certainly make a robust statement and expel, I think, 23 Russian diplomats. But some of the other gestures, such as not attending the World Cup in Russia, I think will not have Vladimir Putin shaking in his boots. So really, for the first time in a long time, it's a real challenge for not just the UK but the US and the NATO alliance. What do we do about not so much a country, but certainly a president who is increasingly out of control?
And the Russians, of course, say they had nothing to do with any of this.
There's been vehement denials from Moscow, and they're sort of taking umbrage at the British response and saying it can't be forgiven, and that it's an insult to Putin. And of course, when a few days ago Putin was asked on camera about the first British attack, the poisoning in Salisbury, he seemed quite dismissive, almost seemed to laugh at it. And really, he does seem to be sort of laughing at the West at this point. Certainly, all the evidence suggests that the Russian denials should not be taken credibly, especially, as I say, because they do seem to fit a wider pattern of behavior, as we've seen in Syria too.
So, David, we heard some of the strongest comments up to date from British Foreign Secretary Boris Yeltsin, who basically pointed the finger at Vladimir Putin himself. And we saw the quote earlier. He said, "Our quarrel is with Putin's Kremlin and with his decision." Do you believe, or are you hearing from your sources, that Britain actually has evidence, clear evidence, that Putin was behind the poisoning?
It raises an important point because the leader of the British opposition, Jeremy Corbyn, has urged caution on that and said we shouldn't jump to conclusions. There does need to be a full investigation, and he's certainly taken some political flack for that, and some say he's doing it for ideological reasons. In the 1980s, he was very left-wing and suspicious of the British deep state. However, I think many MPs on his own side and certainly across the rest of the British political spectrum would say there is really no credible alternative to the Russian state being involved here. Where else would this poison have come from? And more experts are coming forward to say that.
So what is going to happen to British-Russian relations? What's going to happen to relations between EU and NATO with Russia in the middle of all this?
British-Russian relations seem to be at an all-time low, certainly since the Cold War. And again, it's hard to see what will happen between these initial actions of the expulsion of diplomats. But really, probably Russia doesn't care that much about the UK alone. The bigger question is, what does NATO do? Britain has not gone as far as invoking the collective clause that we saw, for example, in the wake of the September the 11th, 2001 attacks on the US, where an attack on one is an attack on all and justifies a military response. The general view seems to be this doesn't escalate to that level, but it really is a crucial test of NATO, not only on its unity, but what physically can it do beyond imposing more sanctions. And let's not forget, finally, the complicating factor here also is that Britain is about to withdraw from the European Union. Right. So, collaboration with European allies always now comes with that extra twist.
So much at stake on complicated issues. David Smith, thank you so much.
Thank you.